Ladies and gentlemen, Mollusk here, and welcome to another Warhammer 40,000 Battle Report. And today, the Kabal of the Bitter Ironies raid has been interrupted by the Scions of Ordo Xenos. The mission we're playing is the Emperor's Will, and I've deployed set up my objective here in this Rhino, which I thought would be appropriate. For his part, my opponent set up his objective in this ruined terrain here at the back of his deployment zone. So as you might imagine, things are going to get quite concentrated quite quickly. My opponent won the roll to go first, and so deployed like this. Has anyone got a can opener? So what you're seeing here is a Space Marine Rhino with the Stern Guard, the Stalker, the unit of Scouts on the objective, and 4 Torok Primes with their squads of special weapons teams inside them. And I don't mean to hurt anyone's feelings here, and it's not a comment on my opponent's paint scheme, because I think that was very nice. But aren't those vehicles just the ugliest motherfuckers? It's like the Razor Gore for 40k. I assume that's why my Archon has hatred for this game, which I tried to roll again for and got hatred. So clearly they offend his sense of the aesthetic. In reserve, my opponent has a Valkyrie and 2 units of Scion Melter Squad people. And I'm going to apologise now. This is the first time I've ever played this army, and I really don't know a lot about what they do, so bear with me on this one. Going back to this picture, I didn't get a picture of my deployment, and so this is after movement in Dark Eldar turn 1, after they cruelly stole the initiative. Basically, my Scourge were deployed here, and the Talos were back in the cover, as I assumed he was going to go first. I wasn't sure if stealing the initiative was a good idea, but it doesn't happen very often, so I thought I'd roll with it. Let's try to pin him in that deployment zone. And there's a bit of a blurry picture of my Talos squad moving forward through the rubble of this backwater planet world. And there's a slightly better shot of my Scourge flitting through the ruins and my Mandrakes holding the fort in those ruins. In the shooting phase, the Talos put pedal to the metal with no squishy infantry to shoot. They just run towards the wall of tin cans and very nearly leave the Kronos behind, as he doesn't do so well on his run move. The Scourge on the left, which we'll call West, pick out the Space Marine Rhino, because it's the only thing they're in range of, and do 2 hull points. Not quite good enough, guys. The Scourge unit in the centre of the board discover they can't actually see through those ruins, and I feel like a bit of an idiot. I just assumed with a true line of sight you can pretty much see everything all the time, but my opponent rightly called me up on it, and so they're sat there like a bunch of plonkers. Full of hatred for the alien, the Scions surge forwards, no doubt trying to blockade the Talos and punch them full of holes. We made some bets on how many Talos would survive. I believe my opponent predicted 2 would die, and I thought none would die. Ever the optimist. Someone else might have called 1. In the shooting phase, once the smoke had cleared, none of the Talos had taken a wound. My opponent's dice were rolling pretty cool, and mine were hot for 4+. That Kronos is worth its weight in gold. A slither of a silver lining for my opponent was that he did manage to mostly destroy one of my Scourge squads with a shot from one of his Toroxes, and one was left, it failed its panic check and ran away. In my turn, it doesn't rally and still doesn't run off the board, giving me a chance for first blood. I've held all my Venoms in reserve, because looking at his tank wall, I didn't think there was a lot they were going to be doing, apart from dying, which isn't very effective. So my plan is to let the Scourge and the Talos go to town for a couple of turns, popping his vehicles open, and then I'll bring in the Venoms for the endgame. And my opponent's Warlord trait is actually helping me a lot with this plan, because it's making it more difficult for me to bring them in. And as you can see, only 1 of my Venoms comes in this turn, and I wasn't really sure where to put it. I contemplated dropping it right in the middle of all his tanks, in the hope of taking some flak off my Talus, but in the end I thought they're tough enough to take it and I'd rather have it alive for the end game, so I stuck it over there. So our movement phase looks like this: the Talus moving up, the Scourge moving up, and shooting is a damp squib. The Scourge managed to take 1 hull point from the Taurox by the Skull Tower. The lead Talos unit failed to do anything to the Marines, which was a bit upsetting. And the rear Talos unit, I think, take 1 of the Imperial Guard, who are hiding near this tower. Combat is a damn sight better, however, as the Talos bend the Imperials over and give them some tentacle lovin'. We wipe out the quadruple plasma gun command squad, and I think kill more than half of the Marines. Although I think 3 of them make their feel no pain, which was a bit of a surprise. It could have been a lot nastier. I think they broke, we caught them, and they stuck around because they're Marines. And we also did laugh because they did 2 wounds to my Talos in Overwatch, which was more than his entire army had done in the previous turn. I hadn't realised that unit had poison shots before I charged all my Talos down the centre towards them. And I need to be more wary about that kind of thing in future, because it was only luck that he didn't roll so well and I rolled so well that we got through. In his turn, the Valkyrie swoops on. The 2 squads of Melter Scions drop into my backfield. The Taurox just move back a little bit to preserve the wall, and the Rhino rumbles forward through the cemetery, heedless of the dangerous terrain. No doubt going for movement blocking or tank shocking shenanigans because I blew its Stormbolter off in the first round. In shooting, the Melter Scions target the Kronos and knock it down to 1 wound, so it's hanging in there. One of the Taurox hits the Scourge with its cannon and plasters them across the floor. A long shot wrecks the venom from across the field, and the guys jump out and are pinned, and there's a long slog from there. And combat between the Talos and the Marines is a bit of a pillow fight. The Talos flub a bit, and the Marines get a taste of their own medicine and find out what it's like to fight power armour. And it's good that they didn't bring any kind of nasty combat weapons, because I've got a bit ahead of my Kronos there, and so they're out of the feel no pain bubble, and I've got to watch that. Luckily, combat is protecting them from all the guns. The Dark Eldar riposte. 2 of my Venoms decide it's time to join the fray, and they're very welcome. Between the 2 of them and the Mandrakes, they wipe out both Scion squads and the Rhino, which was very nice. I'm not going to lie, that felt good. My Talos charge one of the Taurox and make Taurox burgers. They do something like 6 penetrating hits. They are no joke against tanks. And the blast even kills some of the guys inside, which was very nice. My Kronos is limping a bit after having its tentacles melted, and fails his charge against the other Taurox, and that's a shame. But I can't really complain, because my other Talos squad finally assimilate all the organs of the pesky Marines and the Commissar, which nets me Warlord, and has pretty much got me through his lines. Not letting the morale flag, the Scions surge into motion, and blimey those things are nippy. Shooting sees one of the Venoms hull-pointed, and that could have gone a whole lot worse, so I'm quite happy at that. But sadly, all the firepower is starting to tell, and we lose the Kroot-headed Talos and the Kronos. And that makes me very sad. In the Dark Eldar turn, the rest of our reserves come on. I decide to try to put my Warlord's Venom right over here on the other side of the board, hopefully out of line of sight, and hopefully he'll draw something off away from the objectives. However, he scatters right out into the open and narrowly misses going off the edge of the board. These troops around him are part of the dead pile. So yeah, things are looking a little bit more precarious for him now. The other Venom came down pretty much where I needed him to be and scattered conveniently between the 2 Talos units. The hull-pointed Venom hopped over to hide behind the Rhino, and the other Venom hopped over to get a line of sight on the scouts, because guess what I'm shooting at this turn? Not surprisingly, 2 Venoms and a Talos have no trouble wiping out the scout squad, and we're moving in on that objective. My 2-man Talos squad declare a charge against this Taurox, and fail it with a double 1. What can I say? Marine burgers must be weighing them down. Back over to Ordo Xenos. The two Taurox scoot around the cemetery and now look like they're posing quite a threat. Strength 7 blasts really scare me. To the north, in the Imperial deployment zone, the other Taurox and the whatever it's called, a Stalker I think, lay down a fusillade on my Warlord's Venom, and amazingly it survives. I feel a bit embarrassed. I'm not used to lucking out like this. I think his Valkyrie flew over our heads just behind these ruins and just managed to stay on the board, although I don't know if it did anything. And there's more of that. Back to the Dark Eldar. Sorry about the bit of a messy board here. We weren't really expecting to use this bit, but my Archon's Venom flies back around the tower, trying to get out of range or sight. My Kabal warrior squad slog through the forest, firing off blaster shots at the Taurox as they go, but they don't do anything. My other green Venom flies back towards the Rhino, and I've now got 4 objective secured squads around this thing, i.e. the Venoms and their warrior crews. They've got Feel No Pain and they're going to be fearless soon. And they've still got the Mandrakes in the ruins for backup, so I'm feeling fairly confident we can hold this objective. In the shooting phase, my Warlord plays extra sure at his favourite game, which is Deny the Warlord. The Venom and the Lone Talos sit on the objective and fire pot shots at the last surviving Scion until he dies, and then the 2 Talos charge and destroy the Stalker. Again, I think they do like 7 penetrating hits. It's fairly obscene. My opponent drives up, disembarks, blows the foremost Venom out of the sky, and in doing so wrecks his own Taurox, thanks to the damage the Scourge did to it earlier. And that was very generous of him. He then pulverises the squad that was inside it. I think 1 survived, and it's hiding behind the Rhino on the far side. And then the Valkyrie on the edge of the board drops into hover mode, moves into the difficult terrain so as to make the warriors cover saves who are hiding there null and void, and removes the unit. Not quite sure what happened here, because looking at its gun loadout, I should have got either armor saves or Feel No Pain saves from the different weapons it has, and I didn't take any, so I think we made a little bit of a mistake here, but well. These things happen. Right at the back, I missed it almost myself. The remaining Taurox blitzes it back for the objective, and again surprises me with just how fast these things can go. In my turn, the Mandrakes spring into action, looking for the assault on the delicious Monkai things. The lone warrior skulking by the Rhino goes into the Venom, hoping to be more protected that way, and the Venom and the lone Talos in the Imperial deployment zone line up their shots against the Scion squad as well. In shooting, we whittled them down to 1 man, forcing them to ground, which is good because I'm happy not to be taking a melter shot in the face from Snapfire. And in they go. Even though I forget Furious Charge and Rage, they have no problem in butchering the last human. Not to be outdone, the Talos charge the Taurox and rip it to shreds. Poof! And the squad inside jumps out and has a picnic on the objective. In the Imperial turn, the Taurox zips around and destroys the last Venom guarding the Rhino, and then the Valkyrie plinks off the last warrior, so I'm no longer objective secured on this. Darn. But the game goes on, 1 last turn! We ravage the Tempestus squad with shooting, they break and run, but don't quite go off the table. I forget that the Talos' move through cover allow them to charge as normal, and so we fail this charge. I'll remember the rules at some point. And so, in the last turn of the game, the Scions rally and move their 3 inches back towards the objective. And at this point I think my opponent realises that they aren't objective secured. I don't know why. Maybe it's to do with their detachment or something, but apparently these guys aren't. Which means the Dark Eldar hold this objective, and the Talos get to find what goodies have been hidden in these ruins. Over here by the Rhino, the Imperials make a last desperate attempt to drive the Mandrakes off the objective. And for the final time in this game, my opponent rolls pretty shockingly, and the Mandrakes 4+ saves them, contesting the objective. This was a brilliant game, and my opponent was a lovely guy. He played well, and despite having an uphill battle against the dice for quite a lot of the game, still managed to keep up the pressure all the way to the bitter end. And after my Talos broke through his lines, I was trying hard not to feel like I was winning. I had Fritz 40k burning in my ears. And with those desperate struggles for each of those objectives, right at the last turns of the game, I can definitely see the truth of that advice. I loved the feel of my army in this game, but I think I played a bit sloppy with the Venoms, and certainly with the Scourges. It's going to take some more training to get those birdies working right. But the pain engines. They bring me so much joy. I'm just loving how they work. Although I do have to be careful with their positioning and about getting them bogged down. But other than that, can't do better than a win. And I thank my opponent for giving me a good run of it, and I can't wait for the rematch. And I guess all that's left is to check out the scores.